pugilism fans of all types and all different styles and all different stripes. You're locked into the On The Ropes podcast, coming with class, but never the last word on news regarding the boxing world. I'm your host, Shaquille Rashid, alongside podcast analyst Salman Sadiq. How we doing? How goes it? How goes it, bro?
It's going good, man. Going good. Just, put the little kid to sleep. Now, just needed to catch up on the boxing, man. Let's talk about what happened on the weekend. Obviously, big drama show, like Triple G likes to say.
That's it, bro. Big drama show. I like it, man. I like it all good.
Let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. How are you doing?
Yeah, let's break it down, man. Let's break it down. I mean, at the end of the day, we sort of christened the first episode with the biggest fight of this year so far, Kell Brook, happened at the AO Arena Saturday the 19th of February this year. And just before we get into it as well, to anybody watching this channel, like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for any other updates from our side. So I just want to touch on and also touch on the other news that's been sort of coming through to our waves this morning. It's just the Russian military have walked into Ukraine and have stepped in and entered into Ukraine, and they are looking to start war between the two countries. So I hope that NATO can come in and step in and the United Nations as well, to step in and protect the Ukrainians. Hashtag Stand With Ukraine on Twitter. Please follow it for more updates as well as the news in your local area. So I just want to touch on with Kell Brook. I just want to touch on this a little bit. So before we really get our knives out, just a quick touch. Someone on the event, the results, the conclusions. Starting off with the event itself. I mean, this was I think it's the biggest event so far for boxer at this point, besides Eubank Williams. We saw the emergence of Ben Shalom really sort of come into the fray now in terms of the UK promotion from his previous promotion shows. Just want to know how you feel about his undercard and his performance overall, putting on a show in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, big show for the guy, no doubt. I mean, this is this big coming out party, isn't it? Massive pay-per-view event. The undercard, honestly, man, I thought it was pretty garbage, to be honest with you. Like,
didn't have that slight. I was thinking it was a little bit
juicy fight on there that I could get. That was no real fight that I was interested in. Just there were a few prospects. I mean, the main undercard fight was the Natasha Jonas fight. I mean, good for her. She won a world title.
It was a title fight.
It was a one round. It was first round, wasn't it? I think it was, first round KO. So
it was a TKO round 2 according to BoxRec. Yeah, TKO round 2 according to BoxRec.
Right. Okay. So I mean, good
for female super welterweight.
I mean, good for her. She finally won a world title. I mean, I know she's been trying for many years. So big up Natasha Jonas. Yeah. I mean, women's boxing.
I think the tutelage of Joe Gallagher as well. I think that's been instrumental in her kind of uprising with the division, and she's had a few ups and downs, whatnot. But we see her definitely kind of coming to fight. Really has learned her player trade very well in coming up to this stage with a very ever ready veteran in Chris Nomas as well. It had it all.
Women's boxing is making quite a bit of noise. Like, I don't really pay too much. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really pay too much attention to it. Look, the main thing for me is that they have 2-minute rounds, and it's like normally the rounds getting heated up by the end of the second minute, and it's usually the last minute of the round where you get most of the action, and it's like the bell goes and that's it. That's the end of the round. So that kind of puts me off a little bit, but women's boxing is coming up though. I'd say I'm probably more of a female MMA fan personally. I think the quality, the technical abilities of the female MMA fighters for me is like much higher than boxing. But there's a couple of fighters I keep my eye on, but I'm not like a huge fan, if you know what I'm saying. Other than that, I think we had the Azim brothers were on there.
Yes.
I don't even remember the names of the people that they were fighting, but I mean, I watched Adam Azim fight, and to be fair, he looks like he's got all the qualities of a future star. You know, if you just purely on the eye test, if you look at his attributes, he looks very impressive. Like, you know, his hand speed, power, reflexes. He seems to have the full package. Obviously, he's under Shane McGuigan, who's you know, he's been around the block a bit now. He's got quite a lot of experience, so he seems to be in good hands. I'll be following his journey for sure.
I feel like Adam's got the two brothers I've seen on that night. I think Adam looked like he was getting closer to being, you know, the real contender. You know, he's getting up to the prospect level now, and I think he's, you know, taken with the TKO victory over Jordan Ellison. I think that was, you know,
he's a very confident lad, isn't he? He's full of confidence. If I remember correctly, in his last fight, in fact, didn't he knock the guy down and then do a backflip in the ring before the referee had even waved the fight off? Something like that. I think the referee, you know, the guy dropped, and he still wasn't 100% sure whether the guy, you know, whether he was going to continue or not, and he still went and did a backflip in the ring before the fight had even ended. I mean, come on, that's confidence, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. I like that, but because I think this is what we need again. I mean, when we you know, get into the point that we're going to get to, which is the main fight, I think we're going to be looking for that talent that's coming around. You know, the new boy on the block, the new boxer on the block for our specific weight divisions. I think these guys are very much, you know, in the kitchen, baking in the oven, ready for their you know, their big moment to come out and step out and bring the heat. So very much, you know, as I expected, you know, from yourself and your opinions regarding the night and the fight. But let's get to it, man.
Did you watch his brother? I didn't really watch his brother, to be honest with you.
With Hassan Azim, I had a look at that, and that was, you know, pretty much a sound points win for the young guy. Took on MJ Hall in a 4-rounder.
Yeah.
Looked pretty solid. It was. Yeah, I'd say he's also you know, looking great at the prospect level, and I wish him all the best. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story. It's a great story. You know, two brothers coming through like that. Obviously, it's always good to see like a boxing family come through. It doesn't really happen too often. So if both guys can make it, great. I mean, who knows? Maybe they're the future Klitschko brothers. You never know. But all in all, undercard, not so great, man. Wasn't really feeling it. Yeah.
Cool. It's growing. And I think you know, give it with time. I think Ben will be looking to get the big cards under his sleeve.
It's a very young stable. Obviously, it's a work in progress. So to be fair, you can't be too harsh on him. You know, I'm sure in time they'll start to build a more quality kind of stable of fighters. You know, but yeah, I think he's done better than I expected so far in terms of when Eddie Hearn left and where the boxers are now. I feel like he's exceeded expectations personally. So yeah, good on him.
Brilliant. So then we are going to go into, you know, the main event.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Yeah,
let's do it.
The fight of the night.
Where do we begin?
And just taking a step back to episode 1. I made the bold claim that Khan is going to take a shot to Kell Brook into the latter rounds with a TKO victory. Boy, I was wrong. I was wrong. I was so wrong about it.
Should get a pie in the face for that, Shaq.
I mean, seriously.
But mate, listen, you weren't the only one. You weren't the only one. So I think, do you know what? Khan just did a tremendous job of promoting the fight. He was going in so cocky and so confident and arrogant, and I've never seen him so vocal actually before. Like he had everyone convinced that he was so prepared for this fight, and the fire was still in him, and he exuded confidence, didn't he? And that obviously that you kind of buy into that as a fan, and especially when it comes to these preview shows and stuff, and these gloves are off, these little face-offs, they tend to kind of pull you in different directions, and you end up following your heart rather than your head sometimes. But yeah, you did say calm by KO. It was fortunately nothing quite like that, was it?
Well, everything played into Kell's hands. I think the weight was definitely there. The weight difference was definitely there. I think the powers is, as they said, throughout the whole contest, still there.
Just regarding the weight, what was this rehydration clause about them? Because Kell looked flipping huge. it didn't look like he.
As I say,
looked like he had to weigh in the morning of the fight. I don't know what happened there, but he looked massive compared to Kell.
I think working on it for how long he did paid off. I think having time in Fuerteventura in his camp, choosing a hotter climate did help. I think he also generally is. He's been doing it for this long now. I mean, we can only come back to when Triple G was we're talking about 6 years ago now. So we're talking about like having to like drop down to weights then, and at that point continuing to stay in and around super welterweight level. He's been able to kind of continue on the progress of that, but also, I mean, taking nothing away. I think it was driven by or motivated by the fact that he really wanted this fight, and he was, behind him was a mismanaged career, and I think that is something I want to sort of segue to in this point. So is that when someone has the King of the North title and an IBF title to show for themselves as a welterweight career, I mean, what kind of questions crop up in your mind about who takes the contest by just pure motivation? It really has to be Kell Brook, and technicality wise of how heavy he was, how much power he still has, how short he was, those things, like you said in the previous episode, were still there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the points that I did actually make was the fact that Kell seemed way more desperate to win this fight, and I think it really showed. And yeah, in terms of the size difference, I think there was at least 15, whatever Kell did in training. I thought in the weigh-in, my comments were that he looked great in the weigh-in, and I thought he looked better than Khan, if anything. But I think the fans, when you're so heavily, when you've got such heavy emotional investment in a fighter, your eyes they'll just see what you want them to see. So a lot of guys were saying, oh yeah, Brook looks dead at the weight, this and that. I think even Nas was saying his legs look drained. And sometimes when you're so emotionally invested in the fight, your eyes will sometimes perhaps make you see things that aren't always there. And I think
I think Nas was fasting at that point in time, so I think his eyes were big in his belly at the time. So these things make tricks on you, man. But
Kell looked like an absolute beast. I mean, in terms physically, he still looked in his prime. He looked massive for the weight, and Khan, to be fair, looked like the more kind of older.
Big up to Greg Marriott from MTK Global on weight training and keeping his nutrition.
Tremendous job, because Kell came in in great shape. He was
chiseled.
He
everything, and also he's got that. He's got the size as well. I mean, like when a lot of people. I remember seeing excerpts from. I think it was James DeGale fighting out when he was with PBC at the time. I think he was looking at the rematch that he was trying to basically avenge the last fight that he had with a guy out there in the States, and Brook came out for that fight, and I remember he walked in. He sort of confronted Errol Spence by way of some of those guys from the Al Heyman team, just kind of mediated. And I remember then people were comparing the size between Spence and Kell, and they realized how big he gets, like how big Kell can get. They actually said he looks quite thick, but they also said that Spence was just as big as well. So these two could have even met at sort of like super welterweight. And the thing is, this fight here was pretty much catch weight, and it was defined, in terms of weight class to be within super welterweight or around that. It shows a lot that Kell can, with those extra 2 pounds, it does kind of show that he could like kind of reach up to maybe potentially 158, 160 on the fight night. That's what I mean.
Shaq,
he really had that advantage on his side as well.
I mean, let's not get it twisted. We saw a junior middleweight fight a welterweight on that night.
Exactly.
There was no doubt these guys were not in the same weight class, 100%. I mean, I'm not trying to say that because I'm trying to make excuses here. It's just the truth. One guy's always been bigger throughout his whole career. You know, let's remember Khan came up from lightweight to welterweight and he's never been a particularly big welterweight. But when you saw him at 135, 140, Khan always looked like a bit of a beast at them weights. So whereas Kell has been a career-long welterweight, and in the last 2-3 years, he's really been a junior middleweight, hasn't he? So, I mean, there was clearly, that's why the 149-pound weight class was there to even things out a bit, although it didn't in the end, did it? Just before we talk about the fight itself, let's just go into the kind of just the pre-fight goings on, because I don't know whether you noticed, but Khan was getting some cupping done to him in the dressing room before the fight on the right side of his body. Now, I don't know whether you've had cupping done before, Shaq. I've had it done a few times. Have you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've had the cupping
right.
done.
So every single time I've had cupping done, those particular areas on your arm where the cups have been on, they're quite raw. Like they're quite sensitive immediately after the cupping. The last thing I'd want to be doing, is taking punches from a flipping, professional boxer in those areas. So I just thought that was mad. I thought that was really strange why you'd want to do that in the dressing room. I think if anybody else has had cupping done, I'd be interested to know what they think. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Shaq? Because I just thought that was crazy, personally.
Yeah, I mean, this is the grudge. This was the grudge match, and this was the kind of fight that you put you bet your stakes on, in totality. So when it comes to like putting everything on the table, we're talking about all you got, everything from the time you prepared to the time you've put in the bet. I was really concerned when I saw that myself. I think he only, the word got out was when he, after the fight, when we basically saw comments saying that he actually just got it literally like hours before the fight. It could have been anywhere between the weigh-in and the fight when he got it.
Yeah.
So
it was in the dressing room. It was in the dressing room just before the fight. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, because there was individuals there just actually setting up. I remember. I think it was. I think it was a couple of people in the team that were then, basically while he was training, and then he just took a break just to get those in.
Yeah.
As I say, I mean, there's no advantage to that. There's arguments for loads of disadvantages to have that going in before the fight, and I would equal it to having a pre-fight massage that goes beyond, say, the 5-minute rule, where you're trying to get the body loose, trying to get moving, trying to get all your movement and your head movement all into shape. But I think this is the equivalent of having a massage for, like, say, half an hour. So you're really at that stage where that's torture.
But cupping's not like a massage, though, Shaq. With cupping, I mean,
no, I'm not saying it is a massage. Yeah. I'm saying it has the same physical disadvantages to your body. If you were to take cupping, it actually weakens and kind of creates less toleration to physical combat.
I mean, I'm guessing he had dry cupping and not wet cupping, because obviously with wet cupping your blood gets extracted out. So maybe it's a little bit different. Who knows? But I'm sure Khan's got top medical professionals working alongside him. Well, I hope he has anyway. I just thought that one was a real strange one to have cupping done, a couple of hours or an hour before you're about to go and step in the ring for a boxing match. The day before, fine, a few days before, I get it, but an hour before, I don't get that. It's just very bizarre to me.
Well, I doubt he's ever done that before in any of his other fights. So
I've never seen him do that before. It's the first time. Yeah.
As I say, I think it makes the guy weaker, and I think it has, those effects of having like tension and nerves, trying to alleviate that by loosening up the muscles, loosening up the body. At the end of the day, I get the reasoning, but I think it's sort of a taboo to do that. Because people don't want to have those disadvantages there before a fight. So, yeah, absolutely strange, man. And I think that did. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as to say, he he made some plans there. But
who knows whether it had any effect in the fight? But yeah, it was just a funny one. I just didn't get it. And then moving on after that, then the ring walk. I mean, speaking of nerves, like Brook didn't look super confident, but he looked okay.
Head down when he went in, Khan, as well.
But Khan, I thought it was almost like comedic the way he was walking past ambulances on the way in.
Yeah,
like they were getting ready for him or something.
it's like building this narrative that the guy was going to go out on a stretcher, but I just didn't know. What a picture, what a sight. But anyway, but Khan himself, I think I feel that when you look at him, when you look at his ring walk now, when you see how nervous he was looking, I think deep down inside, he probably knew that he ain't quite got it anymore. And this is going to be one hell of a tough night for him, which then obviously kind of was shown in his face, in his whole body language, that, he was just extremely nervous going in. Like he just didn't want to be there almost. I mean, straight away, you had to be a bit worried as a Khan fan, just looking at his body language as he was coming in. Yeah, I was like trying to rearrange my prediction like as quick as I could by the time I saw those numbers. But as I say, I mean, the fight played out. It was, more or less a one-sided contest. Kell Brook taking it by TKO in the 6th round. Take nothing away from Brook, I think. I just alluded earlier to what has he done in the welterweight division. He is, by argument's sake, of the past decade, our best welterweight for Britain. But I do stress that
welterweight. I agree with that. Yeah.
I do stress a lot, bro. Is that I feel that there was a lot missed, or a lot of opportunity missed by the man. I'm not saying that's his fault at all. He's the boxer. He goes in there. You bring him the opponents, he'll go in there and take them out. But I really do think he was lacking the quality operators or the quality opponents to be shipped over, or even told to go over there to really kind of make fights happen for him. Because it was, I really look, and it gives me the question. I mean, was he always set up by British promotion just for Khan, and they're all hedging their bets, all the promoters, talk about Frank, talk about Eddie, talk about Ben, or they're all hedging their bets towards just fighting Khan, because that was the fight that everybody knew Kell wanted.
Yeah, I think Khan, I think he was always the more marketable fighter, wasn't he? Having the Olympic, becoming an Olympic champion at the age of 17. I mean, that's such a rare achievement, especially for a British fighter, not just for a British fighter, just for any fighter in general. So, and also he had a tremendous following as well. Let's face it, Khan was selling out arenas from his professional debut onwards. He was doing big numbers. So yeah, of course, promoters just look at numbers. Really, they're just bothered about who's the next cash cow, where the money's at. And clearly they saw a guy who's like kind of a bit personable, is perhaps a bit more talkative in front of the cameras, and obviously he's got this. And let's not forget as well, he's super talented and extremely exciting in terms of his fight style. He's just extremely, is a very, very entertaining fighter just to watch. So I think it was very obvious why they would have backed Khan, and Brook had to kind of take the harder route to eventually get in a position where he was given credit.
I was going to say,
just going back to the fight. Yeah.
I was just going to say it on the side there. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Amir Khan is worth $40 million.
35. Yeah, there you go, man. That's crazy. That's a lot.
What a stellar career he's had, from the Olympics to the professional ranks and the amateurs involved. And he's come in, from 17 years old, and he really has kind of, put himself in the mix of, boxing legendary status. I think, in terms of, being one of those names that you can remember, and it's synonymous with the decade that he fought in, or the two decades that he's definitely fought in. People will remember the name of Amir Khan. That's for sure.
It's going back to the fight itself then, Shaq. Let's just kind of discuss, like what happened in the fight itself. Because in the first round, obviously in the first round, you couldn't really tell too much, apart from the fact that Khan, who's notoriously a fast starter, wasn't really able. He could tell, straight away, speed just wasn't quite there. And as soon as he got hit, his legs just buckled and never recovered. So, I mean, his speed wasn't there. His legs.
I think, dealing with the speed, right?
Reflexes weren't there.
I think there's a challenge to the speed part by different people, depending on who you talk to. Yeah, some people say the speed was still there. Some people say the reflexes weren't there. Some people say but it was more a case of the actual tolerance, the chin, that really kind of got people to say, well, this is a no contest, because he just can't bring, he hasn't got the resistance anymore. He's shot to death.
Yeah,
and
I'd say, look, he was still fairly fast. But what I mean speed, I mean the blistering hand speed that he's shown throughout his career. That just wasn't there anymore.
I don't think that's been there for like maybe 5 years. We're talking about 5-6 years now. It has been gone, and his best years were gone beyond that. And I totally agree. I think that he was a man. He was man definitely past it. But he was never a guy for me ever. And I think a lot of people could agree with this. He was never a man to put a fight away or run away from a fight. He generally took the fights that made him, and it always helped him cash out. No matter who he was really against, every fight was a big fight with Amir Khan, and no one can ever really doubt that. I mean, that's why his performances and the way he came to the ring is still something that the boxing world and the boxing fans will come out to enjoy. And I think he did. He still came out for us. All these years of waiting and holding on, we have all kind of. I mean, I was walking away from that performance, as much as it was, the worst kind of calm performance I'll ever see in my life, and one that I would never want to see on a personal level, to someone like him.
It was one of Brook's easiest
fights. It was hard to
like it was actually a really easy fight for Brook.
It was a really easy fight for Brook, but I'm saying, taking nothing away from Khan, I mean, like he kind of came in, stepped in, and he kept his end of the bargain. And after a few, he kind of took it to round one and said, you know what, let me box this guy up. Let me see what I can do.
He tried.
Unfortunately, the chocolate brownie was in effect.
As soon as he got hit, and it was a lovely combination from Kell. It was a T1, so it wasn't, it was the right straight followed by, it was a right hand lead followed by the left straight, and a lot of people would just think, oh, he got a rock.
Quintessential Kell Brook.
But actually, when you throw that left straight followed by a right hand, you're getting much more of your body into it. So it's a much more potent left straight, as opposed to a standard jab from a standing position. And it was, again, that Kell's accuracy was on display. And Khan, as soon as he got hit, I mean, his legs just buckled and went, and he was just like, it was almost like you were sat there in shock, thinking, like this was supposed to be Khan's part of the fight. If anything, like this was not the part of the fight where he was supposed to be kind of racking up points. But so the legs, you could see clearly from that point onwards, the legs didn't recover. The legs had gone. His reflexes had gone. He wasn't able to kind of get to get out of the way of punches. Whereas in the past, he was quite good at actually kind of like stepping back away from shots and coming in with his own counter combinations. That was gone. He was just getting caught again and again and again, which you hadn't really seen that much in the past. His brain, I mean, it's questionable whether that was ever there in the first place, to be honest with you. His chin, to be fair, he did take a lot of shots on the chin, and he never went down.
I was just going to segue to that, yes.
If anything, you know what? I think he kind of like shut some of his critics up, because if he was a chin fighter, he would have at least gone down. He would have at least been knocked out with the amount of shots.
Yeah, I think what he alluded to close.
It wasn't a Poppadom chin.
He generally had like a good conditioning regime with Bomac out in Colorado Springs, and I think that's what got him through the fight. But also, we've never doubted. I don't think anybody's doubted his heart. I think his heart's always been there for every fight he's been in. He's always wanted to just be in the fight, stick with it, try and even equal the power puncher in front of him as much as he can. So we can never doubt the heart there, and it was there then as well. But yeah, it was hard to really see, just like, it was sort of crying inside, kind of like drama show, horror show, because it didn't have that thrill and seek that I wanted to get from the fight from round 1 to 6, and then maybe 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm talking, we're going to get to like a really rough moment where Kell could come in.
In rounds 2 and 3, actually, for the first, I'd say 2 minutes and 30 seconds of those 2 rounds, Khan was actually doing okay. As in, like,
I'd given the first 2 rounds.
He'd landed a few shots on Brook, but I think as we kind of discussed, Brook, I always said Brook wouldn't have a problem with Khan's power. He'd be able to kind of handle it okay. And actually, he walked through Khan's shots like they were nothing. And to his credit, he stayed very, very composed. He wasn't affected at all by the shots. He just carried on doing what he was doing and picked him off. So, as I expected anyway, Khan's power wasn't really a big factor at all. So I think in
he actually got a 10-9 round. You got a 10, according to boxing scene, you got a 10-9 round in his favor, and round 2, but Brook called up Brook for every other round going forward. And
basically, Khan as well. Yeah, basically, Khan was a shot fighter. I mean, there's that saying in boxing that the mind sees, but the body won't follow. As in, like, he probably sees the openings, but he physically just weren't able to execute what he wanted to do. A bit like, like we've seen it time and time and again. And unfortunately, we saw signs of it with Crawford, because with Crawford, normally where Khan is a fast starter, Crawford on the other hand is generally quite a slow starter. We would have expected Khan to have actually been doing well in those earlier rounds, but it was probably the first time since I've been watching Khan his whole career that he lost the opening rounds, and again, I think that was a bit of a telling sign that the decline's kind of kicking in here, because you would have at least expected against Crawford for Khan to have done well. Even like versus Canelo, for example, like and every other opponent pretty much, he always starts off fast and looks good for the first 2 rounds. And Crawford's actually, in the past, when you look at certain fights that he's had, even with Kell Brook, with Gamboa, Postol, he's generally a slow starter, and he only gets going by around round 3, and that's usually the point where he kind of figures out the opponent, adapts and takes over and dominates the fight. But I think that was a telling sign in that fight, and in this fight, he'd showed that he deteriorated far more, and the slippage was unimaginable, really, wasn't it? I mean,
I think the conditioning,
it was quite
and the
depressing
endurance,
to see, man.
The resistance for both guys, to be fair, are probably gone. But it was Kell that took advantage of it, and I think just a few points on Kell, because it was that kind of fight for him. He really had it cost from taking it to him with the power and the size, but he has that, as Nas said in the previous episode. He has the Ingle gym. Technique, the style really was kind of, presented like to a T, and it was, it was there for everybody to see. This is the beautiful Ingle style of great timing, great accuracy, power as well. I think that's something that has been underrated and underestimated by a lot of the matchmakers out there when bringing Kell Brook to the forefront of generally being in the big fights, and I think he's generally missed out on that. And I wish, going back, I wish I saw him in a lot more big fights, because I tell you now, like if we were to say to American counterparts, other European counterparts, who was your best welterweight from your country, and we'd have to say Kell Brook, just because of by default, because we didn't have any other main stage welterweight out there in our generation that was a name, let alone anybody that's been kind of tried and tested at that division, other than Kell Brook. And I think a lot of people I don't know who's to blame for it, but we do know there was a period of downfall within Brook's career, and that was going up to to go and tackle Triple G, and you know, sorry, just one on that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was a very key point in that maybe, you know, if you look at his career, I think we're going into the first 33 fights, there was not hardly a scratch on him. And then he goes to see Sean Porter, deals with Sean Porter, who the bookies thought was pretty much going to win that fight against Kell Brook. He proved it wrong. He then goes and does, you know, 3 mandatories, you know, sanctioned by the IBF, and then going into the Triple G fight, daring to be great, you know, nearly on midway through 30 fights. I mean, how was this? You know, how has he been able to kind of then go to Triple G and say, was that the end? You know, for Kell Brook, as you know, someone who had, you know, a big reputation ahead of it, and also potentially slightly where his punch resistance went, his fundamentals maybe.
I think if you look at what happened in the fight, and in terms of him breaking his eye socket, and then the kind of the knock-on effect of that, and you know, if you look then ahead in his career, yeah, you can look at it and think, yeah, okay, maybe that shouldn't have been the best, but maybe that wasn't the best decision. But I do have to give him credit as well, because look, he chose to be great. Do you know what I mean? And this was at the time when he fought Triple G. Triple G was an absolute. He was the boogeyman of the division. He was, you know, like a complete, like, monster. Nobody wanted to fight him. Like, even every other champion in his own weight class was ducking him. So I actually say, listen, give him credit on one hand, the fact that he had the balls to step up and take it, you know. But on the other hand, yeah, if you were going to kind of rewind his career and perhaps choose an alternative route, that probably would have been a fight that shouldn't have happened, just because of the fact that he ended up with a broken eye socket. And then, yeah, we saw then in the future fight with Errol Spence, it was still, the demons were still there, weren't they? It was still preying on his mind. And obviously every time you get hit in that position again, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. So yeah, it's easy to kind of look at it retrospectively and say, yeah, it was a bad move, this and that. But I also do give him credit as well, just because he had the balls to step up to fight a guy who, as I said, was getting ducked right, left, and centre. So I think I see it in 2 different ways. But what I would have liked to have seen is, after Porter, either unify the welterweight division, or you step up to junior middleweight. I think I would have liked Kell to have tried to win a world title at junior middleweight, because I think he would have had a very good chance. I think that was his natural weight class at that point. But yeah, it was the Khan fight, wasn't it? That's what kept him down at welterweight. I mean, I never wanted him to see him defend against Errol Spence. So at that point, it was like, you know, you just stepped up to 160. You obviously don't want to. You obviously are struggling to make 147. The only reason you're taking it is because you don't want to give it your belt. But in terms of the longevity and the kind of the long-term effect on his career, it wasn't a good move. Yeah. I think.
I guess what it also presents as well to, you know, another potential big fight, big money fight as well. If he kept the IBF title, I think, after potentially defeating Spence, if he could, I think that would have been a really big, you know, really big moment for both fighters to come in and say, you know, let's now bring the Khan and Brook fight into there, and that would have taken us probably to, you know, 2018. Roll on the 4 years later, we get the fight, and yeah, as I say, crazy time for me, because I had no idea how bad, you know, in terms of, I didn't measure the resistance very well, I think, and now that I've just mentioned what I mentioned, if you're talking about 33 fights, going through 33 fights without really having to get into some serious damage. Look at Khan. I mean, Khan had a whole career at light welterweight that was synonymous with big time boxing. You know, he was pretty much a main stage for HBO World Championship Boxing. Sky was showing us his fights. He was big money. He was big money pay-per-view. And why? Because he was getting in with big name fighters. You know, we had Malanaji, we had Judo, we had Maidana. You know, that was a golden age for, you know, Khan and UK light welterweight scene for us. I think there wasn't.
Yeah.
There was other UK light welterweights around, you know, namely people we mentioned the first episode. We were then entertained by how well he did in this area, and that has given us, the precedence to say, well, you know what, he's done so much in this in the boxing world. His career is stellar, and
amazing career,
amazing career. And I think
you have to give him credit. Fighters. You know what? We've been following him since 2004, the Olympic days. Yeah. That's 18 years, and how many entertaining fights has he given us?
Yeah, let it also be known that I think at the time, he was the only boxing representative at the Athens Olympics for the UK for Team GB.
Yeah,
where we get nearly,
at the age of 17.
Yeah,
as well,
and we're in the and now we represent, at least we have a representative for at least 14 fighters now. With a mix of different divisions and gender as well. Look how far the sport's come, thanks to individuals like Khan.
For sure,
taking it on and taking the baton as Olympians do. So much to take from that. We've had those moments. Where do the two go now? I mean, it has to be discussed to that degree. I think Khan's at retirement now, and Brook, funnily enough, we touched on the Triple G fight. It was Chris Eubank that he stole that fight from, in terms of the promotion, in terms of the deal, and signing the contract. Do you fancy Chris Eubank with Kell Brook?
Look, here's the thing. People are looking at this Khan Brook fight, and I feel like they've been slightly deceived because they're looking at that performance and thinking, oh, wow, Kell Brook still got it. He's still got plenty left in the tank. But I just feel they're underestimating how bad Khan was in that fight and how shot he was.
I agree.
And look, Brook was manhandling Khan in that fight. That was another big thing in the fight, which we haven't really discussed, which was how many times Khan, when he was hurt on the ropes, he was trying to clinch Brook. But you could just see he was just physically, he was so overmatched that Brook was just shrugging him off easily. It wasn't even, he was really getting manhandled. And that was part of the reason why, if he could have recovered, he never really got a chance to, because he couldn't really tie Brook up effectively. So Khan, for me, actually made Brook look really good, more than... Brook did what he's supposed to do, and he looked physically, aesthetically, he looked in good shape. But
absolutely,
I still think there's a question mark around how much Brook has got left in the tank, because he was facing an older kind of, a veteran, a shot fighter, basically. And I think a lot of mediocre guys probably would have looked good against Khan on that night. So, I don't really take that much into it. Obviously, when you're talking about Chris Eubank, you're talking about a whole different specimen in terms of what he's bringing to the table. I mean, he's still in his prime. He's an absolute beast. You're talking about a guy with a granite chin. He's got an engine on him which doesn't run out. Power difference obviously is going to be huge as well. But I don't know whether Kell will be able to live up to that kind of. I don't know whether he's still got it in him to fight someone bigger than him who brings that kind of intensity to the table. And what exactly does Eubank possess that Kell Brook wants anyway? It's just a name, and even then, he's not like Eubank's done. It's not like Eubank's got a particularly big reputation in terms of for his legacy. Like he's not got. If he had a world title, then I'd consider it. Because then you've got an opportunity to win a world title in a different weight class.
Exactly, yeah.
And then there's something to actually fight for. Then you're talking about a real legacy. Because if he goes and becomes a 2-weight world champion and wins a world title middleweight, of course, that takes his career to a whole different level. So I don't really think... Maybe it's just a case of... Maybe he wants to... he wants another big fight and this and that. But I don't think he should do it. He's made a lot of money now. I don't think that's a good fight for him personally. And why is Eubank even picking on Kell Brook anyway? Like, shouldn't he be trying to fight a world title? Shouldn't he be trying to get a world title? Like, for me, it's a bit of a cheap shot.
Yeah,
he's just doing it as a money grab. That's it, nothing else.
I mean, I'm looking at the the last 6 fights Eubank had, all wins, but half of them don't really kind of tell the story, to be honest with you. I mean, as to where, Eubank Jr.'s future lies. I mean, we're talking, after the Groves defeat at the Super Series. I mean, he went on to take what felt like a 2-fight deal with PBC, fighting James DeGale and Matvey Korobov. Korobov actually went quite far with Jamal Charlo, and that's where I thought he was going, because he got the win with Korobov. It was a disputed sort of issue with Korobov's shoulder at the time, but it led to a TKO victory for Eubank Jr. I think that's where I felt like the pathway, once he got to Marcus Morrison after that, and I think it was a German fellow, Wanik Odijan, I think it was, and then Liam Williams. It just, something didn't make the sense about the pathway he's taken. I think he's generally been that kind of guy where he's somehow he's kind of like trying to be the bully all the time. He's trying to take the bully approach. We saw him do that with potentially, Avni Yildirim. I remember Yildirim he was blown away in the fight with Canelo, and he just jumped on him. He did somehow, I don't know what it was. The management, his team, just literally jumped on Avni Yildirim for the fight. Name on his title, name on his career, but what does he get out of it? It doesn't really get much, other than at the time he did have the IBO title. So leading up to that, he is the defending belt. He was able to offer something to someone. I agree with you. I think Kell should probably retire from that.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't want to see him fight Conor Benn as well, because
the other option is Conor Benn.
Yeah.
People are asking, including Eddie, who would be promoting this fight. He's asking him to, kind of be. It's kind of like a passing of the torch kind of moment, which has not been. We've never been sort of ignorant to a fight like that. We've never not seen a fight like that. We have seen it before historically, where passing of the baton fights have happened. I'm looking at Danny Garcia, Eric Morales, Khan Barrera. There has been passing the torches here and there, or older fighters who have been gatekeepers, supposedly, at those times.
As a boxing fan,
take those fights.
If you're asking me as a boxing fan, would I like to see those fights? Just purely as a fan, yeah, because I think they'd be good fights, actually. I think they would be good fights. But if you're asking me, if I'm managing Kell's career right now, should I take those fights? Then I wouldn't. I mean, you tell me, Shaq, does beating Conor Benn do anything for Kell Brook's legacy right now? Nothing. Because Conor Benn's really not done anything significant in the division. He's
exactly,
not even. Yeah. So
I think Conor Benn. Yeah, and I think it's typical Eddie Hearn. I mean, anybody under his promotional banner has generally been managed to, get the rounds in,
Eddie Hearn's going to be pushing it. Eddie Hearn, he's calling out the name, pushing it hard, because for him,
he knows. But here's the bigger point though, is that with all of these big fights, let's go back to those Kell Brook days as well, where Eddie was promoting him, and we're talking about when Kell was fighting Hector Saldivia, Matthew Hatton. Matthew Hatton not a bad fighter, to be fair, but Hector Saldivia and Michael Lomax, people like that. It was just sort of stay busy, and then he got to his world title, just prior to that, Carson Jones, which he made very hard work of as well. He had to go and beat him again in Hull, Craven Park, convincingly, to then get back in there and retain his IBF international title, to then go and fight Porter. Now, all of that time during that process, they were on Khan's tail, and they were always on Khan's tail for God knows how long. Yeah, it's the same thing here, man. It's Conor Benn, but what was the bigger point was that Eddie had stifled his career to the point where he avoided big names that were chasing Brook. Spence was chasing him for a bit there. A lot of people were in contention for Porter after he won the IBF title. Prior to the IBF title, Kell Brook really didn't show any appetite to get in with those big names at welterweight at the time. You look at Eddie Hearn again. There's a big name already there for Conor Benn, which they don't talk. David Avanesian. David Avanesian, the man that's supposedly even in a sparring contest, Kell Brook's ribs. Let's see. You know, this is
tough fight for Conor Benn.
Typical.
Yeah,
but it's a tough fight for Conor Benn. But this is the guy that's really his. That's where the packs are chasing each other. Really, welterweights at European level. Conor Benn is. He's at a decent level right now. I think that's in the ballpark area where it needs to be. Chasing Kell Brook, it's just speculation. It's just
but obviously we all know Hearn just looks at for him, he looks at the dollar signs and he sees that's going to do big business. And obviously he's got to focus on his future prospects. And after Joshua retires, you know, he's losing all these purse bids to Frank Warren at the moment, isn't he? He lost another one today. I don't know whether you heard. Andrade.
Yeah, he did.
He's lost another one after the Dillian White one. So really, once Joshua White retires, once Joshua retires, I think Dillian White, once he loses to Fury, I can't see him winning a world title after that. Who's he really got in terms of British prospects? I think Conor Benn's one of his main ones, isn't he? As far as I know. So yeah, of course, anything that he can do to push up Conor Benn's stock and at the same time make a payday, he's going to be pushing it for 100%. But he knows if it was the other way around, if it was Kell Brook and if Kell Brook was still his fighter and Conor Benn was with another promotional company, he wouldn't be that fussed about that fight. He'd probably be making the same point that he doesn't really do anything for his legacy, unless he really is that greedy and he would still try and get Brook to get in there. But Conor Benn, he's a young, hungry lion who's got concussive. You saw what he did to Algeria in his last fight, and his knockouts of late have been very impressive. I don't think Kell Brook should really even consider it, especially considering that Conor Benn does nothing for his legacy whatsoever. So that fight, I wouldn't really be too fussed with that fight. I just think Kell Brook should call it a day, personally. I think now he can retire. He can be happy with his career. He's won a world title. He's been in massive fights, in this country and abroad. He's done well. Ideally, would have liked to have seen him push for a title at junior middleweight, because I think he had the potential to do that, and it was more of his natural weight division in the last, say, five years or so. But it is what it is. He wanted the Khan fight, and he got it. And fair play, man. I think he should hang up the gloves with Khan. I don't even think it's a question. He's done. He's finished 100%. He should call it a day. There's nothing left for him. I mean, he's just going to take damage. We don't want it to be a case of, because you've seen. The thing is with Khan, he's a fighter that relies on his physical attributes, and more so than his boxing fundamentals, which is why you saw once those particular attributes have declined, then generally those types of fighters who are kind of unorthodox and rely purely on physical attributes. If you think about someone like Roy Jones Jr. Various other fighters who rely purely on their physical attributes. Once they decline, then that's usually it. They decline is very, very fast and hard. Whereas the ones who have been well schooled and have always kind of had solid boxing fundamentals from the beginning of their career, they're the guys who can fight into the late 30s and still compete on that world. Well, I look, Bernard Hopkins is the obvious example. He was when it came to the fundamentals, he had them nailed down as well as anyone. He was literally he literally had all the kind of tricks and all the boxing fundamentals that you could ever think of. So and look how late he was able to fight. The alien, yeah. So yeah, Khan's done, man. There's no kind of road to recovery for him.
I think we can unanimously agree that Khan has definitely done. I want to just put this point to you as well on a last point with that. What next for both?
Yeah.
Kell Brook record, as we talk about retirement for both, pending.
Yeah.
40 fights, 3 losses. Those three losses have come to pretty much generational fighters: Kell Brook, Errol Spence, Terence Crawford.
Yeah,
You look at Khan.
Guys, yeah.
Khan, 40 fights, 34 wins, 6 defeats. Heavy punchers, generational fighters in Marcus Maidana, to name all of the rest. Danny
I think
Yossi.
for me, he got robbed. Lamont Peterson, there was a massive question mark on that.
Was a massive question mark.
Number one, he was on Peds. Yeah. Number two, I don't know what the referee was doing on that night. And even then, with those points that he had taken off, I still had him winning the fight. So I feel like he got well and truly robbed on that night, personally. Yeah. I don't think he deserved to lose it anyway. So I don't even count that. So, yeah.
And then we got, and then Canelo and Crawford at the last stage.
Yeah.
These generational fighters again. These guys could be Hall of Famers by the time they're finished. It comes down to that. It comes down to the big time fights that you've gone through. He must, with the value I've said, the net worth of Khan right now and what he's done for the sport. I think, as much as I think Kell should retire as well, I just think there's still a little bit left to be desired from the fighter. That's what I'll always go. I think that's what had my head scratching for a week or two now. Is that I think I'm still, as much as I think this was a big fight for me, King of the North. Give him that bragging right. Give him that rep. Yeah, he definitely had that even before. Yeah, for me, before he fought Khan, I repped him then. Before, after he fought and dismantled Sean Porter to that defense, the way that he did it. Yeah, I was saying this guy is decent, is a very decent welterweight, but he cannot continue. He just to really present his place at the at the boxing legendary status. He needs to get those big fights again. Just a little bit still for me left to be desired. He's lost to the best, the generational fighters out there, but that if he got a W somewhere, I just think that is what we could be thinking about. Like, what if? That's a little bit with his career, but that's just me.
Yeah, fair enough, man. But I think, I hear what you're saying. He perhaps could have jumped. I've always thought he probably could have gone to junior middleweight and pushed for a world title there. But I think he's ended his career on a really, really high note. I'd say take and a great payday. I think it's a perfect time for him to retire personally, instead of fighting these young lions who are just purely out to kind of get his name on their resume more than anything else. And I think, again, that Khan fight was deceiving because we didn't really get to know fully how far Brook had declined as well, because he was never really tested, Yeah. He didn't really have a gut. We didn't really see him get kind of hit with any authority, and it was just such an easy fight for him. Like there was no real indication. It was extremely hard to really kind of say definitively, Brook's looking amazing and this and that. I think Khan had a big factor in making Brook look good. But yeah.
He had his title for his title, King of the North, at the end of the day.
It was a good story though, man. I was laughing.
It was a good story,
Khan said afterwards, I don't even remember the sparring sessions.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. The fact that they actually wanted to hype the fight and make it what it is.
He is a proper troll, isn't he? Khan. Yeah. He's got to give it to him. He's a funny guy.
He's quality in the ring, out of the ring, and he's been an entertainer, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching fights, watching him as a boxer and an entertainer. It's been lovely, and it's on that note, I really do.
Definitely, for me, one of the most entertaining British fighters of all time. In terms of just excitement and just pure entertainment. Like Khan Maidana is still today one of my favorite fights of all time.
All-time classic. I think he got a fight of the year. I think he got a fight of the year.
It did, yeah. It did, and
hats off to Khan. I mean, he's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Very rare talent, and obviously he's from Bolton as well. I'm from Bolton, so like for me, there was always that home connection. I wanted to see him do well, and he did, man. He did,
He did. He certainly did. Man. We take nothing away from both of these fights. Yeah. Kell Brook, at the end of the day, happily see him retiring as well. And he's given us great nights as well. You know, the night in Carson, the Triple G fight, Errol Spence fight. I went to the Errol Spence fight actually in Bromwell Lane.
Nice.
Actually was, you know, very much like, you know, rooted for him, because I just felt like, you know, this is a guy that, you know, he can prove again that British welterweights do mean business. And it was Spence, someone who was pretty much, you know, when you stand them both together, he was pretty much, you know, eye for an eye with Brook. And Brook, in argument's sake, I'm not going to go straight into deep into this, but it looked like he was winning those first 6 as well before gas tank went, eyes went, you know, the rest. Just want to
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, yeah, let's move on, Shaq. Yeah.
I just want to touch on, you know, a little bit more of the, you know, boxing around the world at the minute. But prior to that, just a couple points on Taylor Catterall this weekend. One more step, I think, for Taylor until he can get to a big money fight. I'm hoping it's Terence Crawford, just for the you know, for the naysayers to say, you know what, we still got it. We still got a guy around that can still, you know, in terms of British guys that can bang. This guy's bigger than Ricky Burns. This guy hits harder. This guy's got, you know, quintessential footwork. He's you know, the Tartan tornado, and he's a big thing to follow. Trust me. Yeah. I think we're all watching the space for a big guy there.
Yeah, I really like Josh Taylor. I mean, in terms of his, in terms of what he brings to the table, he's a very, very well-rounded fighter. You know, he can box great, inside and outside. You know, he's got everything. His body punches great. His boxing IQ is real good. Chin, you know, he's been tested against some good stiff fighters, and he's stood up to every test he's had so far. And,
I rated him with the Prograis fight. I think that was the one for me.
Prograis fight made fairly easy work of the Mexican fellow Ramirez. Yeah. Prograis fight, I thought, you know what, that was a 50-50 fight for me going into it, and he really showed his quality in that fight. He stood toe to toe with him and just really out hustled him and broke him down in his own kind of style. Like he kind of, you know, he said, fine, let's do this, and really just showed how tough he was. In terms of this Catterall fight, though, to be honest with you, I'm not really that excited. I mean, Catterall, he's just mandatory, isn't it? It's just a mandatory fight.
Yeah, he's had a couple of names like just lined up, you know, prior to coming into the Taylor fight, you know, with Hara, you know, beating Hara Davis quite.
Yeah, but did you watch that Hara Davis fight though, Shaq? I actually watched it. It was a few years ago, that one, yeah, 2-3 years. That was it was a really dry fight, and honestly,
yeah,
like I just felt like, to me, he's a bit too static for my liking. I don't think he's got the footwork to really cause Taylor a problem, because Taylor's a bigger guy with a bigger reach. And I think Catterall, I mean, he's got decent boxing skills, don't get me wrong. Like, defensively, he's all right. He's not really, I don't know, I mean, his punch KO ratio is not great, is it? I don't think he's knocked out too many. I think it's like less than 50%. So I don't think he's really got the power to trouble Taylor, as far as I know. And yeah, I can't see him outboxing him, because I think Taylor's got all the physical advantages on him to kind of make him, to, you know, keep him at the end of his jab and catch him as he's coming in. Like Catterall, I remember when he was fighting O'Hara Davies, like he looked like he was reaching in for a lot of his punches. He didn't. He was nothing there where I thought, oh, I mean, you might make it a little bit awkward, but for me, it's Josh Taylor. I think it's a comfortable win for him. I think he's out of his depth a bit, Catterall, for me. But this is the thing, when you're the undisputed champion and you've got all these belts, these mandatories don't go away. So you've got to deal with these mandatories.
It's all sanctioned by the respective parties. And I think that the organizations are, you know, just they're playing up to, you know, it'll be we're only young in the year still, so it's a long bill of fights to come in for 2022. Let's get these guys out there, and the organizations are sanctioning it. Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall, give the guys a chance, and I think that's the kind of narrative going forward in this fight. I think keys to victory, you know, Josh Taylor's got it all. He's got all kinds of, you know, problems for Jack Catterall going into that fight, and Catterall can, he can give as good as he's got, but I generally think Taylor's heading for greatness, and there's nobody in at domestic levels going to stop him at the
Yeah, I mean, he's truly in his prime right now. I'd expect a dominant performance. Yeah, I mean, I'll watch it for sure, just because Josh Taylor is worth. It's always good to just see him do his thing, man. Like he's got impressive skill set, so I'll be watching it. But yeah, I'm not like massively hyped. I just think it'll be a fairly straightforward victory for him. I'll be surprised if it even goes the distance, personally.
Too right. I think there's.
I think after this, he should step up though, because I think what's the point in him hanging around at 140? Unless he gets a Teofimo. If he can get a Teofimo Lopez fight, then fine. I get that one. That's a massive fight because obviously Teofimo Lopez. Well, until he lost to Kambosos, he was the undisputed champ. But I think he's outgrown that division, and personally, I think he's ready for 140. I just think because of the name and the fact that he brings a lot to the table. I'd like to see that. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. But other than that, I mean, there's no one really there that I'm not interested in. I mean, there's a Zepeda fella that I was mentioning, but I don't think he looked particularly good in his. Like he looked okay in his last fight. I think he's too slow. I don't think he's got what it takes to trouble Josh Taylor. So there's not really anything. There's no real interest for me. He's done it. He's the king of the division. You may as well move up after this mandatory for me and try and get a belt in another division, just to motivate himself as well, because otherwise it's like how motivated can he be to fight mandatory after mandatory? This
is a heavily contested division as well as the welterweight. So it does. We're playing off on different things happening right now. Where does the welterweight division start to open up for someone coming in? Where does the light welterweight division open up for specific fights that we want to see in this year? I mean, I think, if Taylor stays at light welterweight, he has got a lot of people behind him trying to get in there with some big fights. I think Top Rank have this, they've really kind of seriously thought about him and Zepeda at some point, given they're on the same banner.
Yep.
Crawford really does bring in the punters, I think. And I think that might play a little bit more given the fact that Spencer's got Ugas later on in the next couple of months. Josh Taylor, Jack Carroll, SSC Hydro on Saturday. The Fury and White has all but been signed now. April 23rd, Wembley Stadium.
Yep.
So I
can't wait, man. Can't wait.
It was quite funny, to be fair. I found it quite funny that Dillian's silence actually, was playing an imperative part in the whole, way we engaged this fight, whether it was going to happen, whether it was not going to happen. I think the promotion.
It was always going to happen. There was no way. There was no way. He's been moaning all this time about not getting his title shot. It was always going to happen. I don't know what they were waiting.
Yeah, I couldn't believe some of the news that came out just before Monday. Eddie Hearn is thinking about Chisora White 3. Really?
Yeah, right. I mean, come on.
It's a strange one for me. Like, I couldn't. If Eddie really done that, he must be desperate. I mean, like he must be not getting any type of money to put up for any kind of fight, and that's all he's got left. Would Eddie really do that to himself? I doubt it, man. He's had enough experience not to show himself on the back like that.
Eddie's probably just nervous because he knows deep down Joshua is going to just really struggle to beat Usyk again. And I think deep down he probably thinks he'll lose again. And then that's Joshua's world title hopes gone down the window. Like,
That's it.
That's
I gotta say, as a British fan, I would not like that to happen. I would seriously hate if two Brits were essentially then eliminated. One of them eliminated from the sweepstakes.
His other big heavyweight was Dylan White, and he's just lost the promoter role on that. So, of course, I mean,
that was funny.
Eddie's
biggest purse bid ever. I think that was the biggest purse bid ever known by the WBC to be put down. So, big up Frank Warren, he still got it. Bob Arum, also part of the engine room as well. You can't knock the old heads. I mean, Bob's been there for years. He's been there, done that, everything he's known, and he's always. And I think I see them having a real investment in Fury for a few more years, a few more fights. Let's see where it goes, man. I mean, I mean, White and Fury for me, yeah. I can't. I can only see a puncher's chance for Dillian White. Fury has still got it. He's still got, you know, all his reflexes there. He took a trilogy fight with arguably the most heaviest, powerfulest puncher I've ever seen ever in boxing, and he's come through, and he still looks like the man fresh out of Steve Cunningham fight.
For me, Fury at this stage, he's only going to lose. He's the only person who can defeat himself. As in, like, he's his own toughest opponent. As long as he prepares right, I mean, I think he should.
He's a man possessed.
He should handle White, no problem. But I'm sure we'll probably do another little podcast on that closest to the fight and kind of go on a bit more in depth and on that matchup. But yeah, I mean, I got Fury
for the future.
Let's see how they're looking a bit closer to fight time, and then I think we will do a proper breakdown on that one. I'm looking forward to it though, for sure. And if possible, maybe even try and get to Wembley. Let's see.
All in good time, my friend. All in good time. Just a couple of touches on the global boxing topics as of that's recently come out over the past month. Just a quick one on the Canelo deal with DAZN. I think that's near enough wrapped up. I think we got some information from Steve Coppinger of The Athletic. He has come back and said that Canelo is pretty much angling for the 2-fight deal on DAZN with Dimitri Bivol, and then hopefully potential Triple G part 3. It's just being held up slightly as the preparations for Triple G's next fight with Ryota Murata in Japan had to be postponed, pushed forward. So the ink is not on paper yet. But that isn't too bad considering the other offer was Jamal Charlo and I think it was a 2-fight deal with PBC, Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez, which I thought was the tougher of the two. If I have to think about what Canelo has, who Canelo's fought, and also how he's fought in those divisions, I do see Benavidez causing problems for him. Charlo, not necessarily so much. And I thought he would have inclined potentially the BBC, but he's gone straight to DAZN, and he wants to go down the Bivol and Triple G route, which is still pretty difficult in its own right. Both are arguments to say yes and no. This is tough. This is easy, but I think he's going on the right one.
I'd like to see all of those fights apart from the Triple G one, just because I think that chapter's closed. To be fair, Canelo got really lucky, in my opinion, in terms of I thought he lost the first one, and I thought the second one could have easily been a draw, although it was a lot more closer and a lot more competitive. But I thought he clearly lost the first one. So he got quite lucky to get away with those results. However, you could see in the second one, and you could also see in Triple G's last fight against a high-level fighter was Derevchenko, and he struggled in that. He got hit so many times, and he looked like he definitely aged in that fight. Even in the Canelo rematch, he looked like he'd aged as well, but especially in that one. And he's 39 years old now. He could have only have slowed down. I think there's no real interest in that. I don't see him beating Canelo now. I think Canelo will beat him comfortably, maybe even stop him at this stage, because, as I said, he's just, he's obviously lost a lot since his prime. So I don't really have any interest in that, and I don't want to like to see Triple G get beaten up, which he probably will, because it's not really a fair reflection on that matchup. I think we already had a couple of really, really good fights from them, and I don't really see it. But the other three, I'd like to see all of them fights. Benavidez, good fight. Charlo's a good fight. I think he beats them both, but I think they're good fights. I agree with you. I think Benavidez probably maybe a bit more, could be a bit more of a stiffer test, just purely because of the fact that, he's got that kind of aggressive and ruthless nature to him, where he will try to come and win and not just purely go in survival mode. Whereas I see Charlo, I can see him just kind of hanging in there and trying to be competitive, but not really pushing to go for the win like Benavidez would. And Bivol, I think that could be problematic for Canelo. Obviously, he's at 175 pounds as well. So he's a big guy.
I personally think the DAZN deal, I think if I look at it from that perspective, difficulty aside, I think the pathway that DAZN gives and provides probably allows him to then lead on to potentially going towards an Beterbiev fight. And now that I would really want to see, because I think he's been a king in the light heavyweight division. I think he's not had as much, kind of big name fights as he can, but he has been definitely dominating and usurping a lot of the people in that division in really high quality fashion in the way that fans want to see. Why not put them two together at some point after Triple G? Brilliant.
Sign me up, man. I'm down with Beterbiev matchup for sure, man. That would be fireworks. Canelo's probably got a bit too much speed for him, but I mean, Beterbiev, you cannot underestimate that guy. If he hits you, even as good as Canelo's chin is, it'd be interesting. I'm definitely up for that. But yeah, I mean, either way, Canelo's making a crap load of money either way, isn't he?
Yeah. No, that's it. He's got his purses sorted. I think he's had it for a long time now, but even now, people are just dangling carrots at him, and he's just eating wherever he wants. Brilliant. Loma, just a couple more. Loma Kambosos. It's been agreed on Lomachenko's side. George not agreed just yet, but Haney was the man that was meant to be really kind of in contention for that fight down in the Marvel Stadium in Australia. I'm thinking that if he does take I think he would consider the Loma fight being the guy at the lightweight division now. He is the man, George Kambosos. I think Loma's he's walked himself back into an opportunity again. Let's have it. I mean, if you really want to be the guy at lightweight, you got to take Vasily up because the Matrix is still got it, I think, and he's still got a lot to give in the tank. This is his big opportunity once again to put himself back on a perch where he deserves to be, in my opinion. I'm getting the vibes that Devin Haney, however, another Eddie Hearn fight being, in my opinion, being mismanaged. He's been calling people out for God knows how long, and he's never getting these big fights. And I'm just wondering where it's definitely money that Eddie's having, or it's generally not getting the opportunities and the fights in his favor. Because I think he really wanted Lopez to kind of keep his belts, potentially see a deal going on there between Lopez and DAZN. That didn't work out. He's now got to work around Haney still, who is WBC lightweight champion. He's not like
I mean, those guys down there, they make a lot of noise, but we don't really see the fights. Like they need to actually start, if they're interested in proving themselves and wanting to be the best. And yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of noise coming out of there. All these guys like Tank, Haney, Ryan Garcia, I think Lomachenko would happily fight any of them, to be honest with you. Oh
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there's lots of good matchups. So obviously, they're just looking to target Kambosos because they know they all fancy their chances with him, and he's obviously an easy path for them to become to get the belts. But yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't be as vocal if, say, Teofimo Lopez still had the belts. Yeah, but those guys just need to kind of fight each other soon whilst they're still in their prime, because otherwise,
it's getting chock-a-block. It's getting chock-a-block in that division now. Big time traffic going on. So many big names, so many big fighters in that division. Where do they all meet? Can they all meet? Let's wait and see for that one. Charlo Castano, a little bit of a downer there. He got cancelled, rescheduled due to Castano injury. He's apparently still training, but he has actually injured I believe his right arm. He's injured that, so the fight's postponed there. I mean, Jamel Charlo, he's had to go back and once again have to prove himself in a very hotly contested match that they had as of last year. Did the same. Yeah. He's done it a couple of times in the division as well now, and I'm starting to see an inconsistency in his in his desire to fight, I think, as opposed to maybe if he's got the ability to. Just think he's generally not trying to work his way into pretty much like the best of the division. Kind of shadowed by his brother a little bit, but who's to know? there's still if he beats Castano in devastating fashion, I mean he's back there again for me.
It's at 154, right? That's Jamal Charlo. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean it's a rematch. I'd like to see. Like you said, Charlo's got to prove himself again, and let's see. Maybe he underestimated it first time around. But
yeah, I think he's not one to want to go down the long route. I think he's generally as they say, he's the Iron Man. He's got a big KO percentage.
See, he's a guy I would have liked Kell Brook to have fought a few years back. I thought Kell Brook would have given him a hell of a fight.
Definitely.
If I was Brook, I would have been going down and looking for that, to capture a world title against someone like that. But anyway, he did what he did.
That's by the by, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What could have been in the 154 division, Kell Brook didn't see through at the end. Just final thoughts then, Sully, on what you've seen over the past weekend. The future as well, and also a few of the fights that are coming up in April. How do you see it all?
I mean, the weekend was, as an Amir Khan fan, was obviously pretty tough to watch. I think for me, like the post-fight press conference was where I was like, man, like you can see his ear was still bleeding. His face, I've never seen his face look like that before. So yeah, of course it was a big shame to see Khan go out in that way. But, credit to him, he did go out showing the balls and the heart that he's done throughout his career. And he went out on his shield. So fair enough. He wasn't good enough, but he tried his ass off. So fine, no problem. I guess after the Crawford fight, there was always the question mark of, well, did he quit? Did he not? There was a bit of a shadow over him with that. And I think that's, like, he's now kind of reproved himself again in that sense to show that, there's no quitting the guy, and there never really has been. Brook.
You could say that one guy looked like he just came out of the gym. Yeah, it looked like one guy just came out of the gym. The other guy came out of MTV Celebrity Deathmatch.
Hey, Brook didn't have a scrap. Brook looked like he hadn't even been in a fight. It was crazy. It was crazy to see. But yeah, Brook, I have to say, you know what, I'm actually pleased for Brook though, because he did deserve that. The guys. It's weird because I've never seen a fighter before seek acknowledgement from another fighter the way Brook has kind of wanted credit from Khan. It was a bit of a weird one to see a fighter so desperate for another guy's recognition. Well, I guess he got it now, so fair enough. And it's good to see them guys end in good terms. So yeah, it's the end of the
special K.
And
never going to see a welterweight like him for a while now, man.
In terms of April, what have we got coming up in April? We've got the White Fury.
In April, you got, as I say,
got
Fury
anything
White.
in March? There's not much going on in March.
As I say, I think the March time is we're talking maybe, is it Katie Taylor?
Right.
I think it's Katie Taylor. At that time, she's going to fight
Serrano.
Amanda Serrano, I believe. Yeah, Amanda Serrano. So that's a big fight for the female division.
Sure,
given that they
Madison Square Garden. Impressive.
Yeah, so we're talking about women on a large scale, big stage on the big time boxing platform now.
Sure.
It's come now, and I think it's good. I think it's come to the point where, again, like we said, I mean, 2004, one person representing Team GB at the Olympics in boxing. We've got everything now. We've got people of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different genders. They're all coming in, and now you've got Katie Taylor at leading the kind of sport for her gender. Not taking anything away from the quote. There's different divisions, but definitely pioneering the sport in that aspect.
It's going to be a real tough fight for her, man. Serrano is, she brings the heat. I think that could be a hurdle too far for Katie Taylor. Let's see.
Let's see. I mean, who's got the bit? Again, it's not as bad.
Probably edging towards Serrano in that fight, if anything.
I think it's a battle of the gas tank again as well, because I think Taylor can go quite far in the gas tank. I think she's had her moments now where she's been taken to the trenches quite a few times. I think Amanda Serrano has come up from very, very light divisions going up to meet Katie Taylor's, and I just generally think like she's had a longer career as well, so that might play a part in the whole endurance and conditioning going forward. And if Katie Taylor can take advantage of that, then really has more than stamped her name in.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's one of the few female fights that I'll be taking interest in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the same time, I still want to see, Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields. I think that's still a massive fight for that.
Yeah, that's probably the only. That's probably the only other one.
Yeah. To say the truth, yeah, that's probably only there. But at least that's the sport's growth for the division for females anyway, and we're getting there anyway. And there is things in the back burner as well. Caroline Dubois is coming out as well. So things are coming forward, and you can't really knock them down as much.
For sure, man. You got to give them credit. They definitely made a lot of noise in the last couple of years for sure. Yeah.
And I gotta say, I mean, I think we still are young in the years at the minute, and we're still waiting for 2022 to really kind of play itself out yet. I mean, most big fights are going to come maybe in the Q4 end of the year. So yeah, let's see what happens, man. I mean,
obviously we've got Joshua Usyk's going to happen at some point, maybe April as well. No, April, May.
Yeah, that's in April as well. So we can't forget. Well, actually, because of the rematch being contracted, well, the signing happened later. I think they're looking at
probably not in Kiev anymore.
No, they can't do Kiev. Well, I don't think Kiev was in contention. I think it was Saudi, Dubai.
Yeah.
So
I think they did mention at some point. Right. Okay.
So that's it, man. The review's over. We chopped this up enough. I think. As I say, it's still young. The fights of 2022 are still being dreamed up behind the scenes. But one thing's for sure, we will be watching, examining, and debating right here on the ropes.
Catch you soon, brother.
Catch you soon, bro.
Cool, man.